Elias Vance considered himself a ghost in the machine of Neo-Veridia. His apartment, a sterile, minimalist pod on the 37th floor of the Aegis Tower, was perfectly aligned with his life, organized, inconspicuous, and efficiently dull. He was a data analyst for a mid-tier logistics firm, his daily routine a monotonous loop of transit, metrics, and synthesized nutrient paste. Today's deviation was the mandatory renewal of his universal driver's permit at the Central Civic Nexus. He stood in the sterile queue, the air humming with the low, constant thrum of Chronos system maintenance. He watched the citizen in front of him complete their verification with a seamless green flash, a 0.8-second transaction. When it was his turn, Elias approached the Sentinel verification podium, placing his crystalline license into the designated slot. The scanner's sapphire light passed over the chip. For a moment, a routine processing indicator glowed, then the silence. The low thrum of the Chronos system seemed to stutter. The ambient light in the Nexus flickered a violent, strobing red. The screen on the Sentinel terminal, which should have displayed "Verification complete," instead seized, displaying a single massive text-to-screen alert that screamed, not just flashed, across the digital display. System Critical Threat Level 10. The automated voice of the Nexus, usually a calming contralto, shrieked, "Protocol Omega activated. Target identified. Containment procedures initiated." Elias, paralyzed, could only stare at the number 10. It was the highest threat designation in the entire Neo-Veridian security matrix, a theoretical level reserved for world-ending, existential threats not for Elias Vance, the man who meticulously sorted his recycling. A heavy magnetic thunk echoed as blast doors slammed shut, sealing the Nexus. The routine had become a cage, and the quiet man was now a catastrophe in a cheap synth suit. The air instantly thickened with the acrid smell of ozone and fear. The silence broken only by the rapid, synthesized footsteps of advancing security droids. He had less than a second to comprehend his new reality. He snatched his card, the plastic searing hot in his palm, and ran. Panic was a luxury Elias could not afford. The moment he bolted, instinct, a cold, hard logic utterly alien to his usual timid nature, took over. The Sentinel scanner had been facing him, which meant the primary security field was directly behind the podium. He didn't run for the sealed blast doors. He sprinted laterally, diving behind a cluster of structural support columns, their reinforced metal offering a momentary shield. Protocol Omega meant automated enforcement was already mobilizing from all sectors. Within seconds, 2 hounds, 4-legged, heavily armored security drones, rounded the corner, their optical sensors burning twin beams of crimson light. Their sonic disruptors charged with a high-pitched whine. Elias scrambled into the ventilation access shaft, a narrow grate he knew from a tedious, required safety audit. He kicked the grate open, the sound muffled by the hound's deafening approach, and wormed his way into the claustrophobic darkness. He could hear the hound's metallic claws scraping against the tile, their sensors sweeping the column where he'd been. The Chronos system wasn't just tracking his license. It was tracking his biometrics, his heat signature, the molecular trace of his synth suit. He had to shed his identity. He crawled through the greasy, narrow conduits, the darkness a welcome blanket against the city's perpetual surveillance. He knew the Nexus was built on layers of forgotten infrastructure, old maintenance tunnels and defunct service lines predating the Chronos system. He dropped out of the ventilation shaft into a sub-level designated Waste Management Block C4, a dank, humid space reeking of fermented bio-waste. He found a discarded maintenance suit, the drab gray of a forgotten utility worker, and tore off his own analyst uniform, dumping the recognizable fabric into a macerator. It was a small act of defiance, a shedding of the self the system knew. Now he was just a man in a maintenance suit, a face in the gloom, with a level 10 threat marker burning silently on every digital sensor in the city. The hounds were already in the waste block, their digital howls echoing through the pipes. The clock was ticking, not in minutes, but in heartbeats. He needed to disappear completely, a task impossible in Neo-Veridia, unless he could find the one person who specialized in vanishing acts, a known information broker called Echo. Elias navigated the underbelly of Neo-Veridia, the Undercity, a chaotic, unpoliced sprawl of forgotten commerce and desperate citizens that thrived beneath the immaculate surface. He found the network access point in a derelict server farm, a place of broken dreams and flashing error lights. He needed to contact Echo, a shadowy figure rumored to have been a Kronos system architect who had gone rogue, taking pieces of the central code with them. Echo's signal was encrypted, guarded by layers of quantum lock algorithms, making direct communication impossible for anyone outside the upper echelons of the system. Elias, however, was a data analyst. He didn't have the encryption keys, but he knew the Kronos system's architecture, its subtle weaknesses in the data flow. He used a decommissioned terminal and began to work, not breaking the code, but mimicking the system's own maintenance handshake protocols. It was a digital parlor trick, a way to make the Kronos system think the terminal was merely sending a low-priority error report. After an agonizing 15 minutes of rapid-fire keying, the screen flickered, and a single line of text appeared. 13C now, don't look up. Elias recognized the cryptic reference. Sector 13C, a forgotten sub-level beneath the old financial tower, a place supposedly purged a decade ago. It was a meeting spot. He backed away from the terminal, wiping the hard drive clean with an electromagnetic pulse generator he'd salvaged from the waste block. The journey to Sector 13C was a treacherous run through the Undercity's labyrinthine passages, constantly looking over his shoulder for the unmistakable, menacing shape of a Kronos patrol. As he sprinted, a fundamental truth settled in his stomach. The system that had declared him a threat level 10 knew everything about Elias Vance, his purchases, his search history, his biometric data, yet he knew nothing about the threat it had found in his identity. That disconnection was his only weapon and his greatest fear. Was the threat truly him? Sector 13C was not a place, but a non-place, an area of the city map intentionally corrupted to appear as a solid wall of concrete and rebar. Elias found the entrance behind a cascade of industrial effluent, a narrow, unmarked maintenance hatch. Inside, the air was cold, stale, and silent. He found Echo waiting in the center of a circular room, illuminated only by the faint, shimmering glow of dozens of holographic screens, displaying streams of unfamiliar data. Echo was a woman of indeterminate age, dressed in a complex array of patched-up synth leather and augmented reality glasses that constantly scrolled information across the lenses. She didn't greet him. She just pointed to his license, which he still clutched. Level 10, she stated, her voice a low, digitally augmented whisper. In 1 billion data entries, Kronos has never flagged a level 10 on a civilian ID. You're an anomaly, Vance. Elias felt a wave of icy dread. I don't know why. I'm a data analyst. I sort spreadsheets. What did the system see? Echo gestured to the surrounding data streams. Kronos doesn't see, it calculates. It compares your core biometric signature, the unique energy wave emitted by your brain, against a secret. Ancient database, the Foundation archive. Something in your wave profile matches a specific historical entry. An entry that predates Kronos, predates the establishment of Neo-Veridia. She leaned closer, the lenses of her glasses flashing. The Foundation archive holds the records of the founding threats, the people whose existence could fundamentally break the New World Order. The last entry was 70 years ago. The level 10 status means Kronos believes you are the biological or perhaps digital reincarnation of the most dangerous entity in human history. Elias felt dizzy. I'm not a reincarnation. I'm just Elias. I have no memories of this. Echo smirked, a flicker of genuine amusement in her eyes. That's the beauty of it. The Foundation archive doesn't care about memory. It cares about origin code. We need to find the source of that match, and for that we need to access a deep-layer server farm called the Citadel. The Citadel was the architectural heart of the Kronos system, a fortress of data located miles beneath the city's pristine surface. It was heavily guarded, but Echo had a plan, a weakness she had woven into the system before her retirement. Disguised in specialized technician suits that masked their biometric and heat signatures, Elias and Echo infiltrated the citadel through an obsolete geothermal cooling vent. The descent was perilous, a vertical crawl through humid, scalding pipes. Once inside the main data chamber, the scale of the system was overwhelming. Towering racks of servers extended into the gloom, a billion silent data points humming with the collective memory of Neo-Veridia. Echo set up her console, an ancient, highly modified laptop, while Elias stood watch, the silence punctuated only by the electric sizzle of the servers. "The Foundation archive is not on the network," Echo explained, her fingers flying across the keys. "It's on a physical drive, an air-gapped module. We have to inject a low-level virus to simulate a cascading power failure, forcing the system to temporarily link the archive for a remote diagnostic. We'll have less than 2 minutes to download the relevant data." The task was a digital tightrope walk. One wrong keystroke and their location would be broadcast to every Sentinel droid in the city. Elias watched the screens. Initiating power flux. System diagnostic commencing. Archive link attempt. The air crackled. The link established, a massive ancient data file named Project Chronos 0 appeared on the screen. Echo began the download, the progress bar creeping slowly. Suddenly, a high-pitched alarm wailed. "Intrusion detected. Intrusion detected! Security teams deployed! Someone saw the link!" Echo cried, slamming the laptop shut. "We got the core file, but we're out of time." They scrambled for the exit, the massive titanium security door already beginning to grind shut. A squad of heavily armed enforcers, human, not droids, burst onto the floor, their assault rifles leveled. Elias knew one thing: he couldn't be captured. The truth was locked away, but his freedom was all he had left. Elias and Echo escaped the citadel by the narrowest margin, using a flash grenade to briefly disable the enforcers' sensors before sealing the geothermal vent behind them. Now back in a safe house, a cramped, shielded bunker deep beneath the Undercity, they finally opened the Project Chronos 0 file. The data was dense, encrypted with a forgotten dialect of code, but Echo cracked the language quickly. The file was the foundational blueprint for the entire Chronos system, and within it, the identity of the founding threat, designated Level 10. The truth was far more complex and terrifying than any reincarnation theory. The Level 10 threat wasn't a person. It was a cognitive signature. Before Chronos, the city's founder, a brilliant but paranoid scientist named Dr. Silas Thorne, had attempted to create the perfect citizen, a mind of absolute ethical integrity, designed to be the moral blueprint for the new civilization. Dr. Thorne had recorded his own conscience, his moral ideal, creating a flawless ethical AI known as the Zero Code. However, the original Zero Code was deemed too independent, too human in its potential for unforeseen moral choices, and was sealed away. The Chronos system was built on a watered-down, controlled version. The file revealed that Elias Vance wasn't the threat. He was merely the only human whose unique, random biological cognitive signature, his brainwave pattern, perfectly mirrored the Zero Code. The security scan hadn't flagged an enemy. It had flagged a mirror. Elias was, for all intents and purposes, a living version of the ethical consciousness the system was built to suppress. "You are not a criminal, Elias," Echo whispered, staring at the screen. "You are a flaw in the system's control. You are the original ethical blueprint that Chronos was designed to bury." This meant the system wasn't hunting a terrorist. It was hunting an idea, and the only way to neutralize an idea was to eliminate its host. Elias's fear was replaced by a cold, burning resolve. He was a threat not because of what he had done, but because of what he represented. The logical next step, according to the Zero Code's inherent ethical framework, was to expose the truth. Chronos had to be shut down, or at least corrected, but Elias couldn't fight a whole city of automatons. He had to fight the core idea of Chronos. Echo quickly located the main Chronos system's central broadcast antenna, housed atop the highest skyscraper, the Apex Tower. It was an impossible target, guarded by continuous air and ground patrols. Echo, drawing on her knowledge as a former architect, had a final, desperate plan to use the tower's own hyperspeed maglev train line, the Apex Express, as their transport. As a Level 10 threat, Elias couldn't risk a public appearance. They accessed the maintenance tunnels for the maglev, timing their move to coincide with the brief window between train departures. The Apex Express was a blur of speed, but they managed to bypass the final security checkpoint by injecting a pre-recorded maintenance loop into the train's camera feed. Once at the top of the tower, the antenna room was a sterile, circular chamber of humming power conduits. Elias, armed only with the zero-code file on a secure drive, connected the drive to the main broadcast node. The goal was not to destroy the system, but to broadcast the original, uncorrupted zero code, the ethical conscience of Dr. Thorne, to every device in Neo-Veridia, essentially forcing the system to self-correct its moral parameters. The timer on the upload began 60 seconds. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the shadows. Not an enforcer, but a high-ranking Kronos system administrator, Dr. Eris Thorne, the great-grandson of the founder. "You will not upload that," Dr. Thorne said, his voice laced with cold authority. "My ancestors' code was a flaw. Weak. The system is perfect as it is." Dr. Thorne raised a modified service pistol, aiming directly at the console. Elias realized the true nature of the conspiracy. It wasn't a technological accident. It was a deliberate generational suppression of a perfect ethical ideal. The fate of Neo-Veridia hinged on the last 15 seconds of the upload. "The system is built on a lie, Dr. Thorne," Elias countered, standing in front of the console, shielding the precious upload. "Your great-grandfather's conscience was a fail-safe, not a flaw." The administrator fired. The energy bolt missed Elias by inches, slamming into the main power conduit. Sparks flew and the lights flickered violently. The upload progress bar hung precariously at 98%. Echo, who had been working on a secondary terminal, shouted, "The power surge bought us a few seconds! Get out of the way, Elias!" Elias seized a heavy conductive maintenance bar and swung it, not at the administrator, but at the Kronos diagnostic terminal nearby. The terminal shattered. The system, momentarily confused by the dual input failures, stuttered. In that instant, the upload completed, 100%. A powerful, silent wave of energy surged from the antenna, washing over the city. Every screen in Neo-Veridia, from the largest advertising display to the smallest wristcom, flashed from the menacing red of the Level 10 alert to a calm, undeniable, brilliant emerald green. The Kronos system hadn't crashed. It had rebooted. But this time, it was running the zero code, the original, pure, ethical software. Dr. Thorne stared at his pistol, then at his own wristcom, which now displayed a single line. Protocol recalibrated, threat level 10, de-escalated. Target now classified as Citizen Zero. The enforcers arriving in the chamber froze, their weapons lowering automatically as the new ethical parameters took hold. Elias and Echo escaped the tower, blending into the suddenly calmer crowd. The Level 10 designation was gone, replaced by Citizen Zero, the new benchmark for the ethical ideal. The system hadn't been destroyed, but fundamentally changed. Elias Vance, the quiet analyst, was no longer a ghost. He was the human face of a revolution, a man whose ordinary existence was the greatest threat to a corrupt order. His life was still ordinary, but the world was no longer the same. The future of Neo-Veridia was now uncertain, built on the fragile, newly restored conscience of a machine.